Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Narrativa webinar today. We're giving just a couple more minutes for everyone to arrive, and then we'll get started, maybe 60 seconds more or so. Today, we'll be discussing how to increase the CRO pipeline with AI automation. Thank you. Perfect. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for attending today. Appreciate everyone's time. Welcome to the Narrativa webinar, How to Increase the CRO Pipeline with AI Automation. Today's March 20th of 2024. And let's go ahead and get started. I'll introduce our speakers to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Matt. Great to be here today. And I'm Jennifer, and we're just going to run through some brief intros here with Rene and I before we get started. Just a little bit of my background. I'm Jennifer Bittinger, president of Narrativa, and I reside in Southern California, and I'm excited to share about all the new insights and great things that we're helping CROs with to grow their pipeline. So thank you so much. Go ahead, Rene.
Yeah, thanks, Jennifer. I'm Rene Stevens. I'm the managing director of the clinical business operations consulting practice at Danforth Advisors. Been in the industry about 30 years myself. Danforth is a strategic advisory consulting firm that provides services across a number of areas for biotech and biopharma companies, both large and small, mostly in the small to mid-size sector, with the C-suite advisory, strategic communications, finance and accounting, HR, investor relations and risk management. And then in my area, within the development, strategy, and operations space, where we provide all kinds of services for the development pathway that companies go through. My group focuses on outsourcing, vendor management, contract negotiation, clinical finance, manufacturing and supply chain sourcing, and governance within the provider pool that is out there. So thanks for having me today. Glad to be here with you, Jen.
Great. Thank you so much, Rene. It's great to have you here. And it's great to have all of you here with us today. This is a unique topic that a lot of us don't talk about, is how to increase the sales pipeline for a CRO. And we're always talking about how to, design a better trial, a better clinical trial, or a better study. But we really need to also talk about how to empower a CRO's brand. Because if a CRO feels empowered, then they can actually do even better work that we're all wanting. So just a quick little quote that I was going to start out with today was this one from Grandview Research. They said the key factors that are driving healthcare CRO market growth include the increasing investment, as we know, in R&D programs, increasing preference for outsourcing activities due to time and cost constraints, and the patent expiration of blockbuster drugs. And so just a thought is just when you think that many people thought, oh, CROs are going to be fading out. No, actually, it's the opposite. The growth is continuing to grow. Just as of last year, 2023, we saw at least a $64 billion investment in this CRO industry. Not just investments, but the revenue growth is really astronomical. And they are now saying that by 4 years from now, 2028, it will be at least $100 billion industry just with CROs. So I don't know about you, but it makes me want to be an investor, Rene, with CROs, because there's a lot of growth that's happening. And so as we go through this, I'm going to be going a little fast today. There's a lot of great information. Don't worry, we're going to send you a recording of this webinar after today and the whole presentation as a PDF. So you'll have the leave behind. But first, let's talk with, this is a great question for us to think about today. But first, Rene, let me ask you, how have you seen CROs marketing to clients in the past? And do you think that things need to change in any way? Go ahead, Rene.
Well, I think traditionally marketing from CROs has been, it's a small microcosm, of the larger pharmaceutical industry and what we're doing in the R&D space. And we're talking, more later phase development CROs, not necessarily, early stage CROs, right? And in this space, I think it's been traditional marketing channels, essentially,
Yeah.
email and cold calling and conference attendance and that sort of thing, leave behinds and collateral that CROs produce, and other types of suppliers. So you're not talking just the big CROs, but also niche providers and technology companies, et cetera, that have essentially tried to stand out and differentiate themselves in this way. And I think, does it need to change? Well, it probably does, because I think as we're talking about today, Jennifer, with you, I mean, if companies aren't really moving down an automation and an AI enabled pathway, then, from a CRO perspective, they will likely be, kind of behind the eight ball. They'll really be left out. And in order to stay competitive, I think, and to be part of that and to stand out from others, the adoption of these technologies and how you can prove the ROI and demonstrate that is really, I think, key to how companies may market themselves and then stand out in the future.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think, we're in a really interesting time right now where there's a lot of change, but at the same time, people don't know where or how to implement change in the best way. And so that's why I think it's great that companies like ours, like Narrativa or even Danforth Advisors, they can be the guide, right, to helping CROs to understand the best technologies or tools to implement to help not only fast track clinical trials, of course, but also help internal processes. How do you help support your team without adding one more tech device that they have to learn, one more platform they have to learn, or one more, time consuming tool? And so that's where, just a little bit about our background for folks who are new here today. Narrativa, we've been around since 2015. We're not a brand new AI company, as though, many are right now in the whole business sector. But we have actually helped many companies, including life sciences, pharma companies, and companies outside of pharma, to really find a way to always improve their internal and external processes. So number one, helping to improve the usage of their data, right? How to mitigate risk, and then also how to really build their brand presence. And that's our goal. As a Narrativa, I know I can speak for myself and our team. Our number one goal is always trying to do whatever is best for that client. So whether it's a large CRO, a medium or a small CRO, what's going to help them scale in the fastest way and to get more studies from biotech or from sponsors. So it's really interesting. And I think, that's one of the things we want to dive into today is that how do you increase, the B2B buying cycle, or how do you decrease that cycle so that the B2B buyers are quick to hop on board, right? And to sign that dotted line so that you can actually have a shorter sales cycle. I think, as we all know, the B2B sales cycle is not only a long one, but also a very complex process with multiple stakeholders, right? And even change management cannot be an issue to try to get that dotted line signed. And so today, there's several tips and tools that I want to talk about more from a marketing perspective, but then we'll dive deeper into some other technologies that can help the internal processes as well. But one of them that's really cool is that the 95-5 rule. So if you've never, studied marketing or dove deep into marketing and advertising, that's okay. But I encourage you to study this. The 95-5 rule is where at least the challenge of addressing 95% of your prospects are actually not in the market to make a purchase, okay, just to sign a contract or to sign a partnership with you. And so it takes at least 3 to 6 months to try to pull in those out of market buyers to you. And especially with pharma and biotech firms in the longer sales cycle, we're trying to constantly maintain a strategic program or capturing revenue or even developing lead gen capturing to help pull in those outside buyers. An outside buyer may be someone who, you've never met with before, right? They're not connected to a mutual contact of yours. So they're kind of outside of your network. And so the hardest thing as a CRO, I would say, is constantly generating ongoing, engaging content that is fresh, that's evergreen, like white papers or articles, or even refreshing your website, different types of marketing assets on your website that can help to pull in that 95% into your market, where you can actually nurture those sales leads in a greater way. And so you'll have this slide today, and you can talk with your teams about this. If you have more questions, you can ask us. Another rule is that there's a 7-11-4 rule. Now, this is interesting because it actually, we all want that the ZMOT, as we call it, the zero moment of truth in sales, where the customer knows, okay, yes, this is the client I want to sign with, or, this is the CRO I want to sign with to do our next study. And so it's hard because that zero moment of truth takes at least 6 months to sometimes 3 years, right? And I know this personally, working in pharma, those sales cycles can last a long time. But what's interesting is that the average person who's looking for a new CRO, they're going to spend at least 7 hours of research or more. They're going to go to 11 places or websites trying to seek out who's the best CRO to do this type of trial or this phase of our trial. They might even go to 4 locations to meet with people, whether that's at, Scope or D-Farm or, another big event. And so what we need to do is we need to actually try to have content as much as possible to nurture that ZMOT opportunity, that zero moment of truth. So you can do that through even partners like endemic partners like Industry Dive or applied clinical trials. And so this is where if you align with these established partners and have media plans, it can actually help you to have that content, that evergreen content that's going to be out there, sharing your brand so that the person who's wanting to buy sees your brand all the time. Mm-hmm. And it takes budgets, but you can also be creative and do things even on a limited budget. As we're learning, now this slide really is cool. I'm going to take a breath here because I know we're, consuming a lot of information here. But the B2B buyers nowadays are younger. They're more digitally savvy. They're natives to digital atmospheres, and they understand that the sales cycle is longer. They have, as we all know, when you're trying to onboard or win a sponsor, it's going to take not only one person you have to convince within their network, you also have to convince multiple stakeholders, even multiple departments, right? All involved, ClinOps, R&D, the data management department. So you're having to bring so many people into the conversation to help them make that decision. So one of the ways that we thought from Narrativa's perspective and from my perspective, that CROs, they really should front load, as we say, front load more dynamic information for B2B buyers to make a faster, more informed decision. And so if you have information on your website, on your LinkedIn, your social media, that is, white papers or even any kind of article, press releases, even different types of social media posts, this is helping to front load the information for these B2B buyers, who they will, on average, spend at least 60% of their time, looking at on the websites. They're going to go through your website. It happens to us all the time at Narrativa. I'm sure you guys, if you looked at your web traffic, You probably get a lot of people looking. So how do you get your SEO, your search engine optimization, to increase? So you get those eyeballs, you get people coming to you and asking for more information to get that demo, right? To get that conversation with them. So here's just a little bit more information. I won't dive deep into this one, but AI automated content, we have found, has really helped to provide content that CROs need to promote their reputation in the market for buyers and to review, for the buyers to review. So you're going to have, everything from social media posts, you can do email campaigns, and we're finding CROs are strapped like with not enough personnel. The average small to medium-sized CRO, most of their resources and their personnel resources, of course, are going towards the studies, right, that they're working on. So the medical writing team, the biostatisticians, the data managers. So they don't have as many resources to put towards marketing materials to build their brand. But with AI automation, it's actually possible. Interesting enough, we had at Narrativa, we had a client last year in 2023 who was a non-pharma client, but they generated, just 2 people out of their team generated over 200,000 articles just on our AI automation platform. And it was only 2 people, but because it was templatized and using data to generate these articles, they were able to do it automatically and in a very, very fast way to help promote their brand. So let me ask here, and I'll take a pause, but the importance of branding and the customer experience for CROs is growing. And Rene, I wanted to ask you a quick question here. Like, how do you see, what is one or two of the most important ways that CROs can retain their relationships with their current sponsors? Are they able to maintain those relationships, or maybe upsell with a current client? Have you seen that? And are there key activities that really help?
Yeah, I think, well, in the context of what we're talking about, especially, Jen, I think that that CROs and other types of providers and CROs that are talking to these other niche or emerging, providers that are bringing quote innovative solutions, to the table, is one of those key ways to continue that customer experience and to upsell and to continue to gain the trust of your customers and your clients. That's at Scope this year, the panel I led, we were talking about macro level trends and the effect on resourcing in the market in the biotech world, et cetera. And, it was funny because I remember Scope of 2023. Sorry, I was getting my years mixed up. And at Scope 23, you were the only company that I heard of. Now, there might have been others, but the only one that I heard of that was really actively touting AI. And now at Scope this year, it's like FOMO on steroids, right? If you don't have AI, if you didn't have something in your booth, or you weren't walking around with some crazy antic to promote your AI, then you're being left behind. And I think that's just indicative of what's going on with the rise of AI more and its popularity. And if CROs aren't really trying to distinguish themselves by, it's almost counterintuitive to the CRO business model that you're trying to actually reduce the hours that get billed in because you're expediting processes and you're trying to really move the needle faster to get the project done so that you can help that client get to their market and launch. That's the key to remaining a real player, I think, for contract research organizations going forward. It's got to be there's got to be more of a shift away from, we're going to do things by paper because it keeps our people employed and we bill hours. And it has to move from that to a paradigm of how do we enable delivery through technology and encourage our clients to use that, because that cycle of adoption, is slower. And if people are going to take so much time to really put a new technology through the paces, then you have to start earlier, and keeping that funnel filled is really important from that perspective. So I think it's, it's funny. As we talked about this a little bit leading up to the webinar today, and thinking about what's going on out in the market, there's so much changing, and yet at the core, CROs still provide, human resources to execute trials. And so how we blend those two things together and how they can stand out from each other is going to be even more important, I think, in the future.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that, as we are seeing, there's going to be some things that stay the same, that need to stay the same with CROs. And we talk with lots of our clients who are CROs and others who we're trying to bring on board with Narrativa. And we tell them, listen, our job as AI automation software company is not to take your job. Okay, our number one job is always to support you and provide a tool that will improve your job. So just as, Microsoft Office tools or, Salesforce or any other kind of platform or tools can help, this is just one more way that we can actually allow you to not waste so much time on the lower value tasks and spend more time on the higher value tasks that require human intuition, your intelligence, right? And your expertise. We always need a human in the loop, as we say. And so, one of the ways that we're finding CROs are really benefiting from AI automation is not just with clinical trial documentation, helping to mitigate risk and highlight data discrepancies, but we really also are helping them to promote their brand through other types of materials, whether it's white papers, email campaigns. So, really, I always say the sky is the limit. You can use, when, trying to use data turned into text, you can use it for any type of content, if you think about it. So whether it's highly regulated content, like a patient narrative or a white paper or, a social media post, there's a lot that it can do for you. So on this slide, CROs must build their brand, right, to differentiate their offerings against the market, because now there's so many CROs. And as we saw earlier in the presentation, the market's only going to increase. So how do you stand out in this ever-growing huge market with CROs? And here's just a few of the brand values that are now being prioritized by pharma and biotech buyers. And I found this research with WCG. So once you get the presentation from us today, you can click on the links to actually see these other white papers that have this research to back up these numbers. So I think it's really powerful. How can we help you as a CRO to win those buyers, win the pharma, win more biotech, right, to increase your pipeline? So the first one here is diversity, equity and inclusion. Buyers are looking for more ways to always increase diversity, equity, and inclusion in their trials. And so the lack of diversity in clinical trials, it's actually, as we know, can impair the quality. It can increase the costs, and it can, most of all, it's going to put the patient safety at risk, right? If we don't have a representation of, let's say, Pacific Islanders, right, in a trial, and they end up, that genetic code has, or those genes have more adverse events to a drug, then, we need to increase the diversity as much as possible. And this is an ongoing conversation. I think we're all trying to figure out how to help with. And so if you as a CRO say, yes, we are really focused on increasing this, I think that's one way that you can increase your buyers to make this a priority. The next would be decentralized and hybrid trials. As we saw with COVID-19, decentralized trials are becoming a higher priority, and also enabling trials to have a greater inclusion and diversity component. So, we can, with these DCTs, you're going to see, a more participant-centric approach to the research. And, as treatments can be delivered remotely, sponsors can engage with a more diverse patient population. And with this, the DCTs, also, you're going to have more data. We're realizing now, and that kind of leads me to the next one is, how can you tell them that, your sponsors or your biotechs, we're going to have a greater DCT impact. And our teams are ready for that. So if that's something that's a key differentiator for you, share about it, tell about it. They want to know. This is what these buyers are looking for. Same with research and site readiness. Is your team, making this a priority? If you are, share it. Share it in a white paper, share it in your social media, share it in an email campaign. You'd be amazed how many of these buyers are wanting to see that you have great numbers when it comes to site readiness. As a result, there's a growing shortage, as I would say, of clinical research sites because there's such a huge increase of trials right now. And there's also a shortage of principal investigators, and the number of clinical trials is increasing, but the staffing is short. So it's crucial for CROs to show sponsors of biotechs that they have the capabilities to deliver in this market. So make sure you share that. Don't forget that is a very key component to winning a buyer. And second of all, address the emerging opportunities. One of them that they're all interested now, like you said, Rene, is AI, right? Everyone's wanting to know, okay, do you have AI automation? We get calls every day. I do, and emails every day from sponsors and biotechs and CROs asking, okay, what can you do to automate this use case and this use case, whether it's the CSR, clinical study report, TLFs, tables, listings, and figures, or, a digital protocol. I get questions all day long. And so if you as a team at the CRO really help to show that you are staying ahead of the curve in technology, I know it's extra work, but maybe have one person set aside on your team who does more tech research. And then, every quarter brings a new update saying what's new on the market. We find not everyone has the time to do that research. So maybe designate one person who's really excited about it on your team and say, bring this, to our quarterly meeting to talk about what we should be doing to stay ahead of the curve with technology. As we're finding here, there's a quick little point that I want to share is that the phase 3 clinical trial actually generates more than 3.5 million data points. To me, that's a big number. So what are you going to do with that data? All that raw gold. I always say that data is like raw gold, and you just need someone to help you turn it into currency. How can you turn it into currency? You need a tool, right, to turn it into currency to actually use. And so that's where companies like mine, Narrativa, and other companies, even companies like Danforth, they have information that can help to increase your usability of how to better use your data, but then how to be strategic in implementing new technologies. And then another technology is digital biomarkers. So we've all seen, here, I even have my smartwatch on always, every day. I don't go anywhere without it. But now we're seeing that these digital biomarkers are collecting data 24/7 of patients, of every human being who wears one. And this can actually help to improve their overall treatment with their healthcare providers and providing more data for research and studies. So this is also big. If your team as a CRO is wanting to, focus on trials with, digital biomarkers or anything that has this involved, share that with the sponsors, share that with your buyers, the ones in the market that you're trying to capture. Make sure you're sharing this information. And then the last one is a very hot and controversial topic, psychedelics. Come on, Rene. You got to talk about psychedelics one day. No,
but I'm wearing a pink shirt today, so
you're wearing a pink shirt. So we laugh about it because I always think of the '60s and Woodstock, when I think of psychedelics. But now the research is coming out where these are actually really open, these psychedelics may actually help more with CNS and other disorders. And it may seem unorthodox, but there's a growing market for this. In fact, there's been quite a few articles come out from the FDA lately, talking about, the new trials are coming in about psychedelics. And I'm actually really interested to see what's going to happen with this. I think, as we all know, neurological disorders are very complex, as we know. It is really one of the most complex areas. And I think if you as a team, a CRO team, can focus on, these types of new emerging studies, share, maybe how you're wanting to do new studies like this with your buyers, it may open up some more doors, because this is definitely a new topic that many people are wanting to be part of. Rene, at this point, have you heard of any trials starting that you know of with CROs that you've talked with who are talking about psychedelics?
I've heard of a couple, yeah, but and I was getting ready to look up something, Jennifer. There was an article, I think it just came out yesterday, about psychedelics. I'll have to go try to find it, but it's gaining popularity in the press a bit, and it's getting more attention as far as the potential use of psychedelics, especially in the neurology field. So it's one of those things that I think about all the areas that you highlighted for a service provider, trying to put all of those things in as arrows in your quiver, right? Essentially, the relationship you have with the sponsor to meet the immediate need, and if you're delivering, and no matter what size CRO you are or what it is you're providing, gives you the opportunity to build the trust so that you can introduce things like biomarkers and what you're doing within the biomarker field, or DEI, and what your company is doing to help establish those paradigms within sponsors or to support them. And if you can bring that to the table, it just increases your value, obviously, with those clients. And I think that's what the key is. And how to leverage Narrativa, for instance, to help make sure that we fill up that 95, right? Part of the funnel. I think that's the key for me too, is to make sure that we're leveraging technology both to help identify opportunities, but also to help make sure that we're delivering using technology the best way.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Thank you, Rene. I think, these are key points that we need to keep talking about. I mean, as we see, if the projections are accurate and the CROs, continue to grow and the sales continue to grow, I think the more we can use small, medium-sized CROs to help, I think it helps the market. It helps the health of the market to grow. So it's really important that we keep, talking about these topics and helping each other. These are just a few of the takeaways here, in addition to the 4 key areas that, we covered today about how you can increase that pipeline. Here's just 6 more actionable steps that CROs should take to enhance their brand presence in this growing market. And, if you guys have more questions, I know I'm going to try to end here so we can get into our Q&A part of this webinar. But if you have more questions, even after you receive the recording and the Leave Behind presentation today, feel free to reach out to me, Rene, or to Matt, any of our team members. We'd be happy to have, a one-on-one call or send you more information that we have. I know Rene is an expert when it comes to this area, to helping companies grow and growing their brand and seeing even their blind spots and how to really, become the best brand that they can in their market. And so if you want, we can go now into our Q&A session. I know if you guys have any questions, Matt, do you want to give everyone directions on how to submit a question?
Absolutely, absolutely. That's a wonderful segue here. We invite you in the audience today to use the Ask a Question feature in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. We already have one that's coming in now. We also have some that have been submitted prior to this webinar that I'll ask right now. But if you have any thoughts or questions, comments, go ahead and put them in the chat, and we'll see if we can get to them here in the next few minutes as we close out. The first one, Jennifer, I'll go to you with this. How have CROs stood out from other competitors in the past? What are your thoughts on that?
I would say the ones that have stood out the most that I have seen are those who they not only are they're not only very organized and prepared, especially when it comes to site management and helping to speed up that process for a clinical trial with a sponsor, but also they are great at helping to implement any kind of new technology that the sponsor is requiring. Sometimes the sponsor will require you to, use a new technology or to, use a new type of software. Let's say they want to use R or Python instead of SAS. Sometimes we get a lot of those questions, and I talk with them. And I guess I always say the more flexible you can be and the more open-minded you can be, the better as a team. Just because something, and I would always say to the CROs, just because a sponsor's not saying yes right now doesn't mean it's no forever. So keep that relationship. I mean, this is like sales 101, right? But especially in the B2B market, those sales cycles can be so difficult, and it's very long and painful at times. And even when you get to the finish line and you're going to sign a contract, things may change. There's always some change management or something. So keep that relationship strong, and look at your buyer not as, dollar signs. Look at them as a person and think, okay, what's going to be the best for them? How am I going to help them to, have the best trial and for this drug to be successful? How am I going to help them? So I always say, look at them as a person that you really are wanting to help to succeed.
That's great. Great insight there. Rene, question for you. How would you advise CROs to adjust to new technological developments while on a limited budget, like so many are?
I think, and that might actually dovetail as well into one of the questions I see that popped up, right, about considerations that you take into account when you're selecting and implementing an AI solution, right? And I think collaboration and partnership, to onboard and to do the right kind of due diligence with the technology is probably key. You have to establish that there's a need for it, of course. But I think, if most of the companies that are coming out aren't, they're filling a need that either they're trying to create a market through that need, or it's already there and it's just not been exploited as much just yet. But, through the diligence process to vet the company and also that technology for the CROs in some type of a pilot and an ROI use case I think it's the traditional way that you would do that, right? It's there's not anything new about it, but if you're trying to connect your clients and their needs based on what they've expressed to potential technologies that you are looking at as a company on a limited, or more limited budget. I mean, I kind of equate that to sponsor companies that have innovation departments. They don't give them a lot of money, but they expect them to, try to deliver some ROI on potential technology applications or innovation, engineered types of solutions. And the trick to doing that is really to work with your collaborators and spread the wealth, so to speak, or maybe spread the pain of trying to help fund and foot that and put it into use and prove that it works. And I think that's really the key, is that, it has to be practical and applicable. And you don't always have to spend a lot of money to try to test that stuff out.
Got it. Great answer. Thank you for that. I saw another question come into the chat just now. I think it's a great question that I want to pose to the both of you. And I think after that, we'll go ahead and close it out. I'm seeing right here, is there an area of AI in particular that either one of you feels that stands out as providing a higher competitive advantage as compared to some other area for a CRO specifically. Jennifer, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, well, I'm a little bit biased because I run an
I had a
AI.
feeling.
Sorry, guys, but I love this. I love this is a great question. It's I would well, what we've seen so far with all the CROs that we have on that we have as clients, we have seen the tremendous increase of studies and work, let's say all the clinical documentation, even helping to bring us in mid-trial so that we can do data analysis mid-trial, running patient narratives, even to generate patient narratives mid-trial so you can actually see the data discrepancies or date discrepancies, go back to site coordinators, all this stuff. I think I'm seeing that automating large portions of the documentation process, even though it seems like Rene said, it's a double-edged sword because you think, okay, this is going to take away our billable hours as a CRO, but actually it does the reverse. It actually helps to increase your productivity so that you can actually increase the number of studies that you can work on at one time. In fact, we have a medium-sized CRO right now that just came on board 6 months ago. I loved it. They came to us. They said, we want to do more studies with more of our sponsors, but we don't want to hire more staff because it's expensive to hire a larger medical writing team and a larger biostat or programming team. And the number of medical writers in the market is limited, right? Staffing shortages. So how can we do that? And so we actually help them to not only generate the clinical documentation, but we even built a new tool with them while they asked for it, was our redaction tool. We hadn't even thought of doing a redaction tool yet. And so that was a use case they brought to us. We built that tool and it was out in production on the market in 3 months. So yeah, I think that's one of the areas. I think documentation, anywhere there's heavy amounts of data and documentation, is a very prime, ripe area for AI automation.
Sure.
Yeah,
Rene, obviously you can offer a different perspective there, please.
Well, yeah, different, but in line really with what you're saying, Jen, because where you guys are really playing in the biometrics end of the spectrum is, I think, key, right? It's a key area of AI that stands out, and the point that you make is, I think, really important to underscore that. Even though it seems antithetical to the business model, you're actually increasing your opportunity to bring more value to the relationship by staying out of the detail-oriented tasks that are redundant, repetitive, and quite frankly, boring, right? So if you can get that stuff out of the way through a technology application and using AI, that allows you to focus more on the value add that you bring. And that then relies on your expertise and your history and your experience to really help guide your client. I like the redacted. I might have to talk to you about that because that's pretty cool. The process of redacting contracts is laborious. So no doubt about it.
Very long and boring.
And I think too, Jen, if I could, all the things you identified as, areas of interest from the biopharma sponsor side, DEI and what's going on in the slides previously. If you can bring an AI solution to any of those that helps move the needle, then that helps you stand out. To the other question that you asked, Matt, about what differentiates you as a CRO. I think, to be honest, especially in a market that's going to almost double in 4 years, over $100 billion going in the addressable market that's out there, there's plenty of room for small CROs and mid-sized CROs as well as the big guys. And I think those that are adopting into their workflow, because resourcing continues to be a problem in this industry. And I've had that discussion for at least 15 years where, staffing and trying to find good people and keep them is still an ongoing problem for us. So, I think the solution to that, honestly, is through things like AI and what we can apply so that, want everybody to have a job, but at the same time, you just can't. Not everybody can be a statistician or a programmer, right? So, so anyway, I think that's the key for me. And the more that small and mid-sized CROs, as well as the big players, adopt AI and applications and technology, and then put that to use for their clients, then the better I think it's going to be on their margins in the long run.
Yep.
Perfect.
I agree.
No, great. Well, with that being said, thank you both for your time today. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Rene. Great insights here. We'll send a recording of this webinar to all the attendees, along with a copy of the presentation, as Jennifer mentioned at the top there. Please feel free to connect with Jen, Rene, anyone on our Narrativa team to learn more about anything we've discussed today. And we're looking forward to seeing you again. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you all.
So much.
Take care.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.